We got about a minute, guys. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Minot Town Hall meeting. We're coming to you live from the Grand Hotel in beautiful Minot, North Dakota. My name is Nick Dreyer. I am joined with Mike Blessum. He is on the editorial board for the Dakotan. Mike, welcome. We're excited that you're here as well. So this will be a little bit different compared to what you're used to in your normal debate. Let's not even call this a debate. We want this to be a discussion. And we want the citizens of Minot to be involved in that discussion. That's why we invited all these wonderful people out in the audience here tonight to take part in tonight's festivities. There are some pre-planned questions that the candidates got in advance, but there will also be a time for questions from the audience. Along with that tonight, it's not about us. Mike, it's not about us, right?
No, it's not.
It's not. We're simply guys to keep this town hall flowing. And another change tonight is that during the rebuttal time, as you're normally used to, candidates will have a chance to have a discussion with one another and ask questions to their opponents if they so choose. Tonight's town hall is to drill down a bit more and really get to know the people that you're voting for. At every table, there are cards and pens. We want you to take advantage of that, fill out questions. Now, that will be the second half of the show as we get through some of the pre-planned questions. So that will be the second half. Town hall, we have some pre-planned questions right now. We want to thank the Dakotan for bringing tonight's town hall to a reality, and for Beck Television for carrying this live. We also want to thank our wonderful sponsors tonight, Pizza Ranch, Don Bissett Hyundai, and Tires Plus. We are scheduled to go 2 hours, but Mike, if we have questions flowing from the audience, it's okay. We can go over our allotted time of 2 hours. That's why we're here, is to determine and learn more about these candidates and who you want to vote for. And again, we want to hear from you. Now, Mike, we wanted to have all the races here, of course, but we are limited on some of these times. Now, we want you all to know the Dakotan is planning on having more of these town halls, okay? So as we get closer maybe to the general election, we'll have more of these live on television as well. And we are also streaming live on Facebook. Now, I'm going to turn it over to Mike. We have local candidates from the Minot City Council, the mayoral race, and the state legislature, District 3 out of Minot. And that's where I'm going to give it to Mike right now, and he's going to introduce us to the Minot City Council candidates. Mike?
Sounds good. Thanks, Nick. All right, so we are going to start off with the city council race tonight. We've got 4 great candidates here in front of us. They're vying for 3 seats on the city council. Our format for the forum is going to be a series of questions that have been provided to the candidates already. The main point with that is, we're not here to put people on the spot. We're here to get succinct answers. We want to really hear from them on the questions that we've got, and these are questions that have been brought forward by members of the community and sort of flowed through me to get to this point. So if I feel as moderator there's something I want to hear a little bit more from, I may choose to ask that. I don't expect that. I think we'll have a good discussion. And so we drew numbers before we got started here, we're going to start with Mark first, Mark Janser. We've got Lisa Olson and Paul Pittner as well, current city council members that are vying for re-election. And they're joined by Zach Racknerud, who'll be our fourth that we'll hear from on the side over there. And so as we move through these, there's 4 questions. Sitting council member Mark Janser will go first. We'll rotate through. Second round, Lisa Olson will go first. Okay? All right, if everybody's ready, we'll go into the first question. So the new city council structure is really the topic of the first question. In 2017, the voters of Minot decided to change the structure of the city council to a smaller number of members elected on an at-large basis. After 4 years under the new structure, please give us your perspective on the change and whether it has helped or hindered the management of the city and its service to the public. Councilman Janser, we'll start with you.
Thank you very much. Good to be with you tonight. Thanks to the Dakotan for sponsoring this. I think each form has some advantages and disadvantages. I think we're working well under the new system, new structure. Over time, we'd made some adaptations. For instance, meeting twice a month versus the old schedule of once a month. That eliminates some lag time on getting the business done. The only comment that I have gotten is that some citizens are unsure of which alderman to contact because they don't have the territorial ward to go by. But in many cases, they just email or get in touch with all of us or several of us. And so I think that works out just fine. So I'm fine with the current system. I think it's working well.
Okay, great. Councilwoman Olson.
Thank you. So to begin with, I was hesitant that the new structure would work. I was concerned that the city council would lose some of its diversity. At the time of the vote, we had aldermen ranging in age from mid-20s to early 80s, a variety of backgrounds and income levels, and of course, 7 distinct areas within the city. There was only one woman on the council at the time, and it was me. The workload varied, particularly after the 2011 flood, but it was still manageable to serve and hold down a full-time job. Proponents of a change in government stated that an at-large style of representation would encourage more people to seek candidacy. Fast forward to today in 2022, and we have aldermen who range in age from early 30s to early 70s, still from a variety of backgrounds. We now have 2 women on the council. The workload has increased dramatically, and we only have 4 individuals running for 3 open seats. In my opinion, the goal of Make Minot was not met. In answer to the question, I believe that fewer council members can work more closely with city staff, particularly the city manager. It's more difficult to collaborate with 7 instead of 14, but I do believe it made a huge difference to have a voting mayor. A lot to say in trying to get to the point that there really isn't a perfect form of government. Those who are elected are tasked with representing their constituents and need to be prepared to put in the long hours to do so, which is most effectively completed when they have open lines of communication with all area stakeholders.
All right, thank you. And you guys, if you could just lean in just a touch to the microphones, just so we're picking it up a little bit better if you can. All right, we'll go on to Paul Pittner.
So yes, I do believe that the new structure of government is beneficial to the city of Minot. For some of the reasons that were stated, you have a citizen that reaches out to a council member unsure of what council member they're supposed to reach out to. Well, now you have 6 and a mayor that you can reach out to. It's an all-encompassing board. We represent Minot as a whole. I don't care if you live on North Hill, South Hill, if you're my neighbor down the street, or if you live across town. I'm your alderman. I answer to you as a tax-paying citizen. And you might have 2 of the best council members in the city of Minot. They might live next door to each other, or 3 of them might live on the same street. But if we're limited to a ward system, we limit the candidates and the diversity that we can have. So I do believe it's beneficial to have the system that we have. And I believe the job isn't done. We do need more people running for these seats. We do need more representation on council. It's a thankless job. We can all attest to that are up here. And if Zach, you get elected, you'll find that out real quick. But we do it because we care. And again, we shouldn't limit people to this.
All right, Zach?
Yeah, I would echo a lot of what has been said. I think that the at-large representation model it's a model that simplifies things, and it really brings it down to all of us represent all of you in Minot, and to have that simplicity on the ballot and to know that each member is held accountable regardless of which area of the town they may live in. I think that's a beneficial structure. I think it was Paul in one of our last forums mentioned that We do have the 4 candidates for 3 seats, and it would be great if we had 12 candidates for 3 seats. But as it is right now, we're not seeing that level of engagement. And so to ensure that, moving forward, we have the representation we need, I think this streamlined model is favorable.
All right, well, great, thank you. All right, our second topic is going to be property taxes. Property taxes are a hot topic across all the different races, really across the state. For the city council, there's been a lot of discussion around our city related to property taxes. We have proposals for additional aid from the state, a large new burden brought by the decision to add another high school, and a tight real estate market that is likely to push property valuations upward. Please give us your thoughts on property tax and whether anything can or should be done to relieve the increasing pressure we are likely to see in the future. Councilwoman Olsen.
In the past 12 years, I can say with affirmation that the leading concern citizens have is property tax. In these years, I've seen a variety of scenarios, including state-funded property tax relief, holding the line on taxes, and large property tax increases. Each year, the budgets were scrutinized by city staff, city council, and city residents. There is a cost to all of the services that we provide, and I can say with confidence that in each budget, many attempts were made to keep those costs as low as possible. I believe that we need to be honest about our costs so that citizens have full knowledge of what we are facing in the upcoming year. All we need to do is look back 12 months to see the inflationary changes that have come about, such as gas, vehicles, and construction materials. In order to provide needed city services such as clean water, safe roads, and good police and fire protection, we need to appropriately estimate what those costs will be. Those costs cannot be set aside simply due to the fact that voters approved a badly needed new high school. As an elected official representing the citizens of Minot, I must consider the needs that we have. Although I would love to say that we can hold the line on taxes, it is going to be incredibly difficult in these economic times.
Paul?
Yeah, proposals from the state. Again, we as a city, we're subsidizing the cost of government with sales tax. We had the boom that hit, and it was going to last for 15, 20 years. We should still be in the midst of that boom if that held true to this day. It didn't. The bottom fell out. We had to shift the cost of government back to property tax. We were kidding ourselves on what it costs to run this city. And we were subsidizing a fixed expense with a variable income. Not a good idea, in my opinion. Some of those things have to be vetted out. It can be discussed. As far as the investment into, and that's why I use that word very intently, the new high school is an investment. It's an investment into our future. It's an investment into our economy, keeping students that graduate from Minot State as teachers. They have jobs here. They have families here. We're going to be paying teachers and staff to work those schools and then put that money back into our community. Again, we're providing jobs. There's 2 ways to increase revenues. You can either raise taxes or you can increase the base. We need to work on increasing the base so that there's less burden on us as individuals, and that's by bringing in outside investment.
So with the state of everybody's bottom line this past year, it's going to be incredibly important that we are cognizant of that as the city council. We have to make responsible choices. We have to ensure that we're still making the everyday investments, because we have come to enjoy a level of service in Minot that it costs money to do. And so as a member of the council, we have to find every creative avenue that we can to fund investments in Minot. And beyond that, it really comes into creating partnerships with those at the state level. We're seeing upcoming session that there's going to be a lot of surplus revenue, and there's a legacy fund. There's a lot of mechanisms that we can take advantage, that we can use to give some relief to the people. And I think that we need to have those partnerships. And I truly, truly hope that this next session from our Minot legislators, we hear less about cable news culture wars and more about Minot's issues.
Because we're only one of the taxing entities, this is truly a community issue. We have responsibility for what essential services and what activities the city does. The phrase "doing less with less" has been used to describe the kind of situation that we're in, and we're not alone, because this is kind of a national a problem all the way across the board. We need to find efficiencies and use technology to limit additional people requirements. We need to grow our tax base to add revenue. Additional aid from the state is certainly welcome, but unless it is long-term, we can't see that as a capacity to increase our taxation. And when it goes away, we don't want, if it's a short-term thing, when it goes away, we don't want to see a large bump that we're forced to make. So those are the challenges, and I think that's how we have to approach it.
All right, thank you. All right, the next topic will be economic development. Minot has a long, varied history of economic development programs. Based on the current environment, what should our priorities be to ensure a vibrant economy that best serves the people of our region? Paul?
This is right in my wheelhouse. This is my passion, economic development for the city of Minot. In 2018, when I first got on council, I made an ordinance change proposal to take a portion of sales tax, and instead of dumping it into the magic fund, which is sitting there collecting interest, we're taxing you guys, taxing us to just collect interest on a bank account, we can take that money and we can invest in economic development. It's a regional tax. Everyone pays it, everyone that comes into our community. And it allows us to do things like hiring the retail coach, a contract with an organization that markets Minot as a community for outside investment, outside entities that want to come in and invest in Minot. Vibrant. It's full of energy and enthusiasm, right? That's the definition. If we want to do that, we need to invest in the businesses that are here and the people that are here. In the small businesses that are here, the people that want to invest, we have to be open for business. We have to help them be successful, give them the tools, put tools in the toolbox for them to be successful, whether that's through a facade improvement program that not only helps people renovate buildings, but also gives work to local contractors, that puts money back into our community.
Zach?
So with economic development, there's a lot of exciting opportunities that are upcoming for the city of Minot. We're looking out at the new Trinity Hospital site and what can be done out in that way. We're looking at the existing Trinity site and what can be the future of that and how it plays into our downtown. The flood project is continuing to move, and what can we do to revitalize our community and make it beautiful? Those are all sorts of things that are going to be on the docket in the next few years, and us as a council are going to have to responsibly develop and look to make Minot more an exciting and great community to live in. We're going to have to get creative because the funding as it stands, it's going to be difficult. But there's things out there. Even with the repurposing of the NOS sales tax, we could look at an avenue like that. Whether we look at drafting a way to use it and kicking it down to the citizens of Minot, whatever we have to do to come up with those creative solutions, I think it's a great time for Minot in that sense, and those areas in particular are going to be exciting.
Mark?
Thank you. City government needs to do what we can to encourage private investment and development. Sometimes that means staying out of the way and removing obstacles. I favor programs like the revolving loan fund, which leverages Bank of North Dakota PACE dollars for pre-approved borrowers so that they can move forward with their projects. That money then recirculates and helps the next entrepreneur. We need to focus on investors and companies that have staying power. Incentives need to be strategic and projects fully vetted and include clawback provisions that protect the city. We must continue recruiting and make sure our information is readily available to site selectors and developers. I would like to see a hotel development downtown. I'd like to see something go vertical on either one of the parking ramps. I think there's a great opportunity in continuing to be part of our downtown picture.
Lisa?
So economic development, I believe, must be both active and purposeful. For those who have lived in Minot for decades, you've been witness to passive economic development plans that have had lukewarm results. In 2022, with a huge online presence, Minot must be pursuing businesses that see our market as both interesting and profitable. Some of these contacts were recently made during an international retail convention in Las Vegas, where city staff diligently worked with potential retailers. Along with bringing in new franchise businesses, we must work with our local entrepreneurs who are interested in opening retail locations and food establishments in the Magic City. This has been particularly evident in downtown Minot. A relationship with MAC EDC and the Magic Fund can garner great results, such as the work being done at the port. In each scenario, the city has a role, whether it be employing economic development specialists, providing support such as the facade improvement plan, reworking our planning codes, or simply listening. We need to be part of this work. We are keenly aware that if our economy grows, the resilience on property tax decreases. Meeting the needs of not only Minot, but of all of Northwest North Dakota is vital. Investments now bring dividends later.
Thank you. All right, on to the fourth question. So this one is titled Bright Ideas. So Minot's diverse population is drawn from all areas of the country to work in our agricultural, oil, military, and other industries. The people of Western North Dakota are independent and innovative. What one idea have you come up with or heard from others that you feel would make Minot a better place to live and help its people prosper? Zach?
My favorite part of this race has been sitting down with folks and hearing their ideas. There's a lot of exciting opportunity, like I mentioned in the last question, and to see people's eyes light up when they talk about certain areas of Minot and what we can do to improve the community. It's awesome to hear. There's examples of what if the railroad sells the land? What can we do with that former industrial land? There's the flood project, what we can do around the entire thing. There's concepts of what could be done where the Trinity Hospital building used to stand. All those sorts of things. There's just a great opportunity. And one of my personal favorites that I would love to see in future years is what we do once the flood project is complete. We have a lot of dead standing water that was part of former flood projects. Can we find creative ways to get that water flowing? Can we get the resources we need to make it happen? Because that would be one thing that would greatly improve the quality of life in our community.
Mark?
I've heard repeatedly that we need a large indoor recreation for activities such as a track, party rooms, pickleball courts, something that families can go to, a place particularly during the winter where they can get out with the kids, get some exercise, burn some calories, gather with their friends. I think a second item is the Technical Education Center, which is coming our way due to the NDR grant project, and also an aquatic center, which we're going to have thanks to the voters approving that section of the bond issue.
So as an alumni of Williston High School with family and friends that still live in Williston, Tioga, and Stanley, I can say without a doubt that Minot has the best quality of life for its citizens. Our list of amenities is long and fruitful. We offer great retail and dining options. We have level 2 trauma care through Trinity Medical Center. We are home to Minot State University, and we have an airport with 3 commercial airlines. Our public and private schools are top-notch, and we have an active arts community and an expanding downtown. In the near future, we're going to have a children's science museum, a center for technical education, and a state-of-the-art medical center. Our close relationship to Minot Air Force Base has afforded us the opportunities to meet people from around the globe and to show them a little bit of North Dakota nice when they're here. I believe all of these showcase our commitment to our community and our willingness to collaborate with each other to get the job done. As host to the North Dakota State Fair and the North Coast Fest, we know that our participation helps create events that bring in people from all over. Our shared pride in Minot and all that it has to offer will reap dividends among our citizens and all that visit.
Great. Paul?
Ditto to everything everybody said. I think they all drive home a lot of good points. We have to stay the course. We have to be open for business. We have we need to be competitive across the state. We need to be competitive across the nation when people look to either move here, invest here, make Minot their home. I was born and raised here. Left for a while, ended up coming back because Minot is a great place. There is magic in Minot. But what we need to do is we need to be supportive. We need to have collaboration with our taxing entities, Ward County, Park Board, School Board. We need to improve those relationships with our community partners. MAC-EDC has a role to play. Surface Basin Planning Council, the Rolling Loan Funds, Visit Minot has a role to play. There is a lot of work to be done, a lot of work. And we're all foolish to think if the city alone can pick this up and carry it, or that one entity, one of those entities can pick this up and make it happen. I was one of 10 kids, and we moved a lot. We did a lot of good work, but we worked as a unit, and it's the same thing can happen if we all come together, we can make Minot a lot better than it already is.
Okay. All right. Thanks, candidates. That is the list of questions. And so now we're going to move into the next section, which is it's meant to be an open forum for you each to address each other, to give a rebuttal, to say something, really to give the crowd a reason to vote for you. I think we've heard a lot of good things from you tonight. I think it was a very collegial discussion. I think everybody was pretty North Dakota nice. And not that we're asking for anybody to call each other out, but the point is people need distinctions. We've got to vote for 3 of you tomorrow. or I'm sorry, for 3 of you for 3 spots. And so I think we'd like to hear some of the reasons why we should vote for you individually. So we're gonna have 5 minutes to work through this. We'll go ahead. If you want me to prod, I can, but I'd love to see you guys kind of take the floor and go.
I'll take the first bit as the one challenger in the race. I do think it's very important in local governance that we're constantly having fresh faces come through and new perspectives, especially when we're in a community that's seeing so much change right now. I've lived here for 6 years now. My wife and our 2 foster kids we bought our first home last year here in Minot. We love this community so much. So I just, if you're looking for a new perspective and a new voice on the council, I would just encourage you to vote for me tomorrow.
I've only been, I guess I'm the second least senior person here as far as time on the council, but if you were to vote for me because of what I've done. Vote for me because of the votes that I've made while sitting on the dais. I think Minot's a great place to live. And I'll say this might lose me some voters, but if you think I'd rather be here than at home with my kids, you're kidding yourself. I'd much rather be with my family. I'd much rather have Monday nights off. But I'm passionate about what we're doing up here. I'm passionate about the work. I was raised that if you want to be a part of you better to be a part of the solution than the problem. So that's why I'm up here, because I want to make Minot better for my kids and for the next generation. And I'm 100% serious about that. I want to make it. I left. You couldn't have seen me drive faster than when I left Minot when I graduated high school. And I came back because there was a great opportunity here, and I don't want my kids to leave. If they do, they do. I get it, but I want to make Minot competitive and attractive across the state. I don't want to be the last town people think of when they think of Minot when it comes to competing with Fargos and Bismarcks and Grand Forks. We deserve a chance too. We need to pound our chest and be proud of where we're from, and I am. I've supported economic development from the get-go. It was one of the first things I did. That was one of the things I ran on before. We need to drive ourselves. We need to become diverse. We need to widen our tax base. We need to infill the investments that we have here, because that lessens the burden on everyone else. That lessens the burden on us as property owners, as a homeowner. It lessens the burden on me if we have outside investment coming in, whether it's supporting an EPIC companies through a TIF, utilizing the tools that are there that the state has provided for us. These aren't tools for an investor, they're tools for us as communities. And we need to take full advantage of that. We need to be open for business. We need to drive business here, support locally, and be attractive for outside investment.
So I will say that all 4 of us have been in a lot of forums and we get along very well. And I don't feel like I'm running against any one of these individuals. My name is on the ballot because I'm willing to continue to serve. I put that out on my Facebook page, and that truly is it. If voters appreciate the way that I have voted over the last 12 years, and I made a rough estimate that I voted on approximately 5,000 agenda items, which is a lot. I also believe I've attended approximately 1,300 meetings. So I put in the time, I have the experience, and if I have represented people well, then I'm asking for 4 more years to finish up some projects that started with the 2011 flood and just aren't quite done. And if not, then I'm happy that I've served for 12 years. I've had the pleasure of representing a lot of people, and I've gotten to know many, many more people because of this position. But again, I don't feel like I'm running against anyone. I just want to be able to continue to serve if you feel that I'm representing you well.
Thank you. So I'm the other end of the table, the more experienced end. It's been a real privilege to serve on the Minot City Council. I'd like to serve one more term, and as Lisa said, bring some of these projects to completion. We have made a good deal of progress in the last 4 years, and before that, ever since the flood. And I think we can continue down that path. There are some tough decisions to be made, some good judgments to be made. And I've seen more than one budget. I've seen more than one pay plan. You gain an understanding of these matters as you learn on the job, serving on city council. And so I bring that experience, I bring that judgment, and I'd appreciate your support.
Okay. Any other rebuttals from any of you? You each got your chance. Feeling good?
I guess the only thing that I would add is that it is a big time commitment, probably more than most people realize. Again, it depends on the month and the activity, but it's hours to days to weeks sometimes to get some projects complete. And, I know that we put in the time and we're asking to continue to do that.
Okay, candidates, thank you very much. That was the time from the Minot City Council candidates, and now you've heard from them. Mike, great start, but guess what? We still got more to go. We're going to bring up the Minot mayoral candidates next, but before that, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll continue after the break at the Minot Town Hall meeting.
Only Pizza Ranch serves buffet your way.
Don't you mean my way, Mr. Voiceover Guy?
Sure, anyone's actually. Request your favorite pizza. We'll make it, bake it, and give you the first.
I can add peppers to pepperoni, Stampede on stuffed crust, maybe Texan taco on thin. No tomatoes on my half. How can I convince Mom to let's eat here every night?
It's buffet your way at Pizza Ranch. Say it with me, kid.
Real reviews, real employees.
Hey, it's Jason, and this is a real customer review. Jason always gets the job done with honesty and integrity. That's me. I've used a number of companies to handle my small fleet in the past, but never had the same level of service, honesty, and caring that Jason provides. Hey, whether it's a car or a fleet, we're always honest.
Whether it's brakes, alignments, or a check engine light, trust your vehicle's performance with the team at Tires Plus.
Hey, what are you guys doing?
We're making our getaway to the Hyundai Getaway Sales Event.
The Hyundai Getaway Sales Event is going on now here at Don Bissett Hyundai. You can get the best deals right now. This isn't even a Hyundai. Let's go!
We could have planned this out better.
Get away with a great deal only at the Hyundai Getaway Sales Event at Don Bissett Hyundai on Minot's North Hill.
There are so many ways to make memories at the Pizza Ranch buffet. Creating a fresh salad just the way you like it. Getting your favorite pizza with a buffet your way request. Celebrating with pepperoni on cheesy stuffed crust. Digging into the country's best chicken, hot and crispy, with mashed potatoes and gravy. Enjoy some cactus bread and ice cream. Hit the fun zone for games and prizes. Make your buffet memories at Pizza Ranch.
Welcome back to the Minot Town Hall meeting. We got some folks in the audience that are gathering, grabbing some food and some pop and water. Go ahead and do that. We are going to get going now with some more candidates, and this is for the Minot mayor's race. Before that, I want to once again thank our sponsors, of course, the Dakotan, for bringing this town hall to us tonight. Pizza Ranch, Don Bissett Hyundai, and Tires Plus. I'm going to turn it over to Mike Blessum, who is on the Dakotan editorial board, and Mike will bring us through some pre-planned questions right now.
All right. Great. Thanks, Nick. We're going to move on to the mayor's race, and we're going to use a similar format. In this case, we've got 3 questions we're going to go through. We've got 3 candidates. This election season, we've heard a lot from the mayor candidates. You guys have been active. You've been in a lot of different forums in a lot of different places. So thanks for being willing to do that, for being willing to be here the night before the election, because it's a big deal for the crowd and for those at home to hear from you guys, and we appreciate that. So we're going to use the same format. You're going to have about 60 seconds to answer each of the questions that were, again, pre-sent out. We're going to start first with Tom Ross. We're going to go next to Sean Sipma, and then finish up with Miranda Schuler in the first round of questioning. We're going to begin with Tom with the role of the mayor. The mayor's position has been described as equal parts chief executive and head cheerleader. What unique qualities do you bring to the position? What do you intend to do differently than previous mayors?
First of all, I want to thank the Dakotan. It's funny because we were talking. I asked Sean. I said, "Which number was this?" And he said, "It's our last one." So, we have been active. But this, the invite to take part in this tonight was just a reminder that you got to run the race to the finish line, and this is really the finish line. So I appreciate the Dakotan for putting this on. I think every candidate or anybody who considers running for any elected office, they have to think to themselves that you're not gonna run against somebody who you think is doing a better job than you can do. I think looking at this race, I threw my hat in the ring because I believe in my heart that I can do a better job, that I can be a better mayor. I can be a stronger mayor for the city of Minot, for all of Minot. When it comes down to it, it is, oh, it's just 1 minute.
Go ahead. Yeah, it is
Okay.
very short, Tom. Go ahead though for a little bit.
I can't see the clock, no.
Okay.
You know, when it comes down to it, the mayor is 1 vote of 7 on the council. So he's got to work together. He's got to build a consensus. He's got to work with the other council members. And I think when it really comes down to it, it's just good, solid judgment is something unique we haven't had in the current mayor's office.
Okay, thank you. And so Sean and Miranda, Tom did go a little bit longer. If you guys need a little bit, go ahead with that. We'll go to Sean next.
Well, thank you. And as all of us will say, we appreciate the opportunity to be here one more time before the election tomorrow. And thank you to the Dakotan. Absolutely, the mayor is kind of the chief executive for the city, but where most of that role plays such an important part for the community is out with those individual conversations with so many of our partners, both at the local, state, and national levels. I think that I do and have done a better job than my predecessors and or even for the folks that are running against me in my ability to connect and see a big picture and being able to take a look at how all of the different components, prospects, or proposals fit into that big picture. Absolutely, it's important to work within the council itself, but sometimes it's also meaning to disagree at times with the council itself and help the other elected try to take a look at the big picture that is seen. Communication with the community is absolutely paramount, but it's also important to communicate at all levels, and that is something that I absolutely excel in.
Thanks, Sean. All right, Miranda?
So the question was, what unique qualities do you bring to the position, and what do you intend to do differently than previous mayors? Describing the position as equal parts chief executive and head cheerleader. I'm a business owner. I own 3 businesses. I employ people in Minot. I am a chief executive. And I was a cheerleader at one time, but I was not a very good one. It was the sport that was open. When it comes to unique qualities, my leadership style is considered a meta leadership style. It's involving numerous different stakeholders to seek and influence action and focus on performance. Currently, I serve on the Minot Public School Boards. Previously, I served on the Minot City Council. The reason I jumped to the school board is because I really wanted to understand better a different taxing entity. I wanted to understand how the functions work because I thought that would make me a better leader for our community because I enjoy leadership. That's where I'm different than the 2 people sitting on either side of me. I have served in 2 separate political subdivisions, and I can see different sides of those coins. What makes me different than the current mayor? Sean does a great job of getting out in front of people. I probably won't be that mayor. My hope would be to empower the current sitting council members to take some additional roles and responsibilities as cheerleaders for our community. And it also would be empowering the citizens to do the same thing. It's important, as Sean has alluded, that we need to go to the state and lobby for our community, but it shouldn't always be one person. It's probably more effective if we've got somebody who's very passionate about whatever the topic is. Maybe it's another city council member, or maybe it's someone within our community to do those things. That's going to be equally, if not more important, in my opinion. So that's what makes me different.
All right, thank you. All right, and that's a good segue into our second question. So our second question, and we'll begin with Sean this time, is the passion for the city. Minot has faced many challenges over its history with flooding, the ups and downs of the oil industry, maintaining our long-term strong relationship with Minot Air Force Base, and many others. What is the one issue you are most passionate about as you look to the future of our great city?
To say that there's any one issue, I feel leaves so many others behind. To me, the big one issue is the big picture, because flood control, economic development, the relationship with Minot Air Force Base, our relationship at the state legislature, our relationship with the city employees, our infrastructure, our tax base, all of it absolutely matters just as much as the others. Now, flood control absolutely is at the top of the list when it comes to the financial well-being, life, health, and safety. But if we absolutely focus on one issue and forget all of the others or put them on the back burner, we fall farther behind at so many other levels. So it is the big picture, and then addressing each one of these and how they fit into that big picture also helps us dynamically plan strategically for the future on where our investments are going to be, where our priorities are going to be, and how every single citizen plays a part in that big picture or how it affects them.
Miranda?
Passions for the city, there's no doubt that the three of us and the city council members before us, they all have a passion for our community, otherwise we wouldn't be here. And the same for the people in the audience. Obviously, you have a passion for our community or you wouldn't be here and be engaged citizens in this process. So I commend you for that. As for issues, Sean alluded to the same thing. There's a lot of different issues. We're all in the same boat. We're all in the same boat when it comes to, issues, whether it be the roads or, public safety. We're also in the same boat when it comes to large scale economic things that are happening in our country. As for what my most passionate topic would be potentially economic development with a focus on critical infrastructure and services. I believe critical infrastructure and services, as indicated by a survey of the citizens to be the most important topic, is our number one economic development tool. Businesses aren't going to come to our community. People aren't going to enjoy living in our community if they aren't feeling safe and they don't have good quality roads and they don't have good quality water and garbage services, all of those things. That's going to be our number one economic development tool. And I'd also like to see us maintain some of our young people and attract new people to our community. It is kind of a best kept secret to live in Minot, but we need to share that with people so that we can help spread that tax burden amongst a larger tax base.
Thank you. Tom?
The simple answer is grow. I mean, my passion for Minot, I want to share it, being born and raised here. I want to share what I know about the city of Minot. I want to brag about Minot. I want to get it out there. So I want to grow. Economic development is going to be a key for us. It's going to be a key to spread that tax base or that tax burden throughout the city. I also want to turn Minot into a destination for meetings, conventions. And I want to make it a destination for youth sports. It's a hotbed right now, and we have an opportunity to jump on board with that. Right now, we have too many parents and their student athletes leaving Minot every weekend to go participate in sporting events in Bismarck, Fargo, and Grand Forks. We've got the facilities here. We've just got to build the support network, and we can start being a hub for youth sports, which will fill up the hotel rooms. But between tourism and economic development, those are my passions.
Okay, on to our third question. So this question is going to begin with Miranda. It's going to be on the challenges in the city. The last few years have seen a series of difficult decisions and situations in and around City Hall. Three of the most controversial were the decision to fly the LGBTQ flag over City Hall, the handling of the previous city manager, and mask mandates. Please give us your perspective on the handling of these events and anything that you feel could have been handled differently.
So I should preface on these specific events, my insight's going to be different than the gentleman on either side of me, as I was not on council and privy to some of the same information they were when these events took place. With regards to the flag, my understanding at the time, there was no ordinance stating that that flag, or any flag for that matter, couldn't be flown. So there was a decision that was made to allow the flag to be flown, which likely kept the city out of a lawsuit, in my opinion. I do believe there was maybe some short-sightedness having it be made by one person rather than the entire council. I think that may have been a mistake. And I believe now that the ordinance has changed on that, which is a good thing. The flags that should be flown in front of City Hall are the state and the United States flag. Another issue was specifically on the flag. It's pretty easy to find flag etiquette. It's everywhere. Flag etiquette was not used in that situation. That was a downfall. In fact, that's the one thing that really bothered me more than anything else. When it comes to the previous city manager, that's a difficult topic because you're dealing with employment. As an employer myself, sometimes some of that information needs to remain private due to the situations. And again, I wasn't on city council, so there's information that I don't know. And with regards to mask mandates, I believe in personal freedom. And it's really easy to look back and say hindsight, it's 2020. We should have done this or we should have done that. And it was an emotional thing for all of us to go through it as a community and as a country. At the time, there was mandates for masks because if you were wearing a mask and maybe another person wasn't, then you wouldn't have to quarantine. And that may have been a contributing factor in the reason the mask mandate was put into place from the city. I can tell you from the school side, that was a reason because we needed to keep the kids in schools. As I've alluded to, I'm on school board. As soon as those requirements changed at a state level, I was the first person to ask that we remove those mandates. So with regards to masks, if you feel like you need to wear one, great, wear one. If you don't want to wear one, that's outstanding too. I support personal choice.
Thanks, Miranda. I went a little deeper on this one. So Tom, if you need a little bit extra, go ahead.
When you sent these questions out, I go, really, 1 minute to cover these? Yeah, good luck. Wow. When we voted for the flag ordinance, and it was of my opinion that the flagpole in front of City Hall is sacred. It's the United States flag, the North Dakota flag, and the City of Minot flag, period, not negotiable in my view. But I was also the council member at that meeting that challenged both sides to that issue to come together and to find a solution to hopefully maybe put up a community flag display where everybody could be proud to display the flags of their organizations. I did that. I put that out there for them. As far as the city manager is concerned, first off, I would not have a personal friendship with a department head or the city manager. There needs to be a boundary, period. Secondly, I would not have snuck in a last-minute contract discussion onto the agenda when you still have 9 months for negotiations. I would have not have given such a golden parachute to a man who was found guilty of creating a hostile work environment. As for the mask mandates, I believe public officials and public health, we dropped the ball. I am in no way downplaying any death due to COVID. As a whole, I think together we could have been a lot better talking about early treatments and the benefits of vitamin D and vitamin C. I feel we let fear control us. The cost to small business, the cost to mental health, and the cost to families is immeasurable. We're just scratching the surface now. I can tell you that I am fully vaccinated and I have tested positive twice for COVID. When you get cancer and you want a second opinion, you're encouraged to do so. Your doctor encourages you to do so. When you test positive for COVID and you want a second opinion, you're kind of considered a conspiracy person. And the doctor you go to is a quack. That's a problem because I went and had a second opinion. And that quack I credit for helping save my life through this. And that's where I stand.
Right. Thanks, Tom. Sean, on to you. And of course, use a little bit extra if you need to.
Well, thank you. And I'm glad that these questions are finally being asked out here in our forums. Onto the flag and flag etiquette. Absolutely, that was one issue that bothered me substantially because as it was told to me from some of the staff and some of the organizers that they had asked, and then the improper size was still put up. Going back to the decision, absolutely, the policy had been in place. And when I ran for mayor in 2018, the city was embroiled in a tremendous amount of different lawsuits. I'm going to speed up here because this is going to run long. Embroiled in a lot of lawsuits. And this was absolutely an opportunity to either move forward, fly the flag, take the hit as the person that chose to do that, and then come back with a policy that does represent the United States flag, North Dakota flag, and Minot flag, but also to keep the city out of litigious issues. So it also did reveal a lot about the community. But when all of that anger was spread out, I made sure that people knew exactly who had made that decision for the community, but also to move the community forward through that and find an amicable solution to it long term. Now, as far as the city manager is concerned, one of the issues that had been brought up through those negotiations was the contract itself and what contract to be used. ICMA contract, the International City Managers Association, was the platform for that. There had been a lot of budget items added on Fridays as that had previously changed, but I really, hindsight 2020, should have been held off, and that, to my dismay, was part of the issue. But we should also be aware that through the current city council's decisions, it was actually an ICMA contract that the new city manager, the current city manager, also has. This is a standard if we want qualified city managers running our community. And finally, to the public health. It's easy to Monday morning quarterback this one. We didn't know what we didn't know in 2020, and there was a tremendous amount of angst and frustration through the community. But I think looking at what happened through 2020 and being able to walk through this better than just about every other area in the country and be able to roll that mask mandate back as quickly as we can. My concern over all of this is I don't want to see the public health pendulum swing so far in the other direction. Prudence and I think a level head moving forward is important, but I am very concerned that we may sacrifice public health down the road because of overreaction. But moving forward, we will be very mindful. And most of those mandates came down from the state with the exception of that mask mandate, but that was a full council decision.
All right, thanks, everyone. So the next section now, we'll have about 5 minutes for rebuttal. Again, use it as you please. You saw a little bit of how the city council candidates use their time. Please feel free. Who would like to begin?
I'll jump on this one, and I'll go back to this city manager issue. Coming into 2018, we also knew that there was some culture issues within inside City Hall that had to be addressed. Now, I'm not going to dive deep into this for the reason of human resources, but changes were needed, and we needed to find a way to collectively come together and collaborate inside our city departments, and change certainly didn't come easy. And working through some of that, of course, there were quite a few things that were going on that we as a city council were not aware of. So that really did kind of spur a lot of what had taken place leading up to that. I think we learned a lot. There is a much better process in place in contract negotiation and also vetting of the city managers now. So I see the changes that have taken place since that time to prevent what did happen prior. And I want to jump over into the issue of the city, the mayor's role. When you go out to Minot Air Force Base, when you talk to the Secretary of the Air Force, when you're talking to the Senate leadership or the House leadership down at the legislature, they want to talk to the mayor. And while we do have some of the city council members go down to testify, it is the message from the mayor that is carried. Also out in Washington, there is an important role that the mayor has to play. I do feel that I am vastly qualified for this position, not only knowing the background of so many different aspects of the history of the city governance, but all of the different components that are critically important to our city's role right now. And I'll stop there for now.
Okay. Who would like to go next?
To follow up to that, I think it's important to have a pipeline of strong leaders in our community. And by taking on all the responsibility, as you do, it doesn't empower others to take on that additional responsibility. So I may be quiet and I might be not as boisterous as some people. I'm a thinker, and I'm always thinking about how to approach situations, who might be best suited to present in a situation. And I have to disagree with you on that, Sean. I think that there are some exceptional leaders in this community. And while somebody might say that they need to see the mayor, or they want to see the mayor in a position, it's our job as leaders to showcase other people's abilities as well and build trust and confidence in other people also.
We have a lot of good quality people within the city of Minot. We have a lot of knowledgeable people in the city of Minot. By saying that or insinuating that you have a talent and you can talk in front of the state legislature, or you can talk in front of somebody in Washington, D.C. Hey, listen, every mayor in the history of Minot has been doing the same thing. Every mayor in the history of Minot has gone to Bismarck and fought for Minot. Every mayor in the history of Minot has gone to Washington and fought for Minot. So, both of the challengers that you see sitting in front of you are going to do the same thing. That's a passion. We're not going to sit back and not fight for the community that means so much to us.
Okay. Anything that any of the three would like to add?
Just to follow up a little bit on that. Absolutely, they have gone, but not nearly as often and not nearly as passionately. And I'm not dogging any of our former city mayors for that. The times have changed, and certainly it does require someone who is going to put in the time. And I think that is evident. Anybody can take a look at the post that I put on my reelection page to see just how much work has been put into that. And the mayor does play an important role as being out in the community. And I tell you what, it is work. And it takes so much out of you. But I think that that's where the commitment, and it's lead by example. And I think that I have absolutely done that for this community, and right, wrong, or otherwise, that has been evident throughout the community and noticed at all levels.
Anything additional? All right, thanks so much.
Well, thank you, Mike. Thank you to the mayoral candidates for your time tonight. Great job answering some of these questions, and I know there were some tough questions in there. Coming up, we'll be gathering questions from the audience, so make sure to fill out those cards with those pads and pens on your paper, and Derek will be gathering those. But first, we're going to bring up the legislative candidates from District 3 in Minot, and they will be coming on the stage. But first, a short break, and the Minot Town Hall meeting will continue.
Pizza Ranch serves buffet your way.
Don't you mean my way, Mr. Voiceover Guy?
Sure, anyone's way, actually. Request your favorite pizza. We'll make it, bake it, and give you the first slice.
I can add peppers to pepperoni, stampede on stuffed crust, maybe Texan taco on thin. No tomatoes on my half. How can I convince Mom to let us eat here every night?
It's buffet your way at Pizza Ranch. Say it with me, kid.
Real reviews, real employees.
Hey, it's Jason, and this is a real customer review. Jason always gets the job done with honesty and integrity. That's me. I've used a number of companies to handle my small fleet in the past, but never had the same level of service, honesty, and caring that Jason provides. Hey, whether it's a car or a fleet, we're always honest.
Whether it's brakes, alignments, or a check engine light, trust your vehicle's performance with the team at Tires Plus.
Hey, what are you guys doing?
We're making our getaway to the Hyundai Getaway Sales Event.
The Hyundai Getaway Sales Event is going on now here at Don Bassett Hyundai. You can get the best deals right now. This isn't even a Hyundai. Let's go!
We could have planned this out better.
Get away with a great deal only at the Hyundai Getaway Sales Event at Don Bassett Hyundai on Minot's North Hill.
There are so many ways to make memories at the Pizza Ranch buffet. Creating a fresh salad just the way you like it. Getting your favorite pizza with a buffet your way request. Celebrating with pepperoni on cheesy stuffed crust. Digging into the country's best chicken, hot and crispy, with mashed potatoes and gravy. Enjoy some cactus bread and ice cream. Hit the fun zone for games and prizes. Make your buffet memories at Pizza Ranch.
Hi, and welcome back to the Grand Hotel. My name's Nick Dreyer. I'm joined by Mike Blessum on the editorial board of the Dakotan. We want to thank the Dakotan for bringing this town hall to us tonight. We've heard from mayoral candidates. We have heard from candidates from the Minot City Council. They all did great. We are looking forward to District 3 legislative candidates right now on the stage. I am going to throw it over to my partner, Mike Blessum, for some pre-planned questions. Mike.
All right. Thank you, Nick. So one thing to clarify real quick. So one of the reasons why we did the District 3 House race on the Republican side is that it's a contested race. District 5 has a race as well tomorrow, although there are no Republicans running against the current incumbents there. And likewise, we also don't have a Democrat on the stage today because that race is unopposed. And so we hope later in the season to be able to bring you another District 3 discussion that would include the Democratic challenger down the road. We're going to go now into the District 3 House race. District 3 has 2 House positions open. We've got 3 people up for that. We've got incumbent Jeff Hoverson, and he is joined by candidates Lori Van Winkle and Roscoe Striley, vying for the right to be on the November ballot as Republicans. Jeff Hoverson and Lori Van Winkle won the endorsement of the District 3 Republicans at their endorsing convention in March. And Roscoe Striley is a former legislator who is asking for the community's vote to go back down to the legislature. Candidates, again, will be given 60 seconds to answer each question. If we have to adjust a little bit, we certainly will, but we'd like to stay close to that. We're going to start off with the first question to Roscoe, and to be followed by Jeff and then Lori, and as before, we'll rotate with each round. The first question is going to be on the separation of powers. The last few years have seen unprecedented actions across the country from executive branch office holders across a whole spectrum of topics. In North Dakota, we have seen our governor unilaterally close businesses, implement statewide mask mandates, close election polling places, and spend enormous amounts of money to try to shape the makeup of the legislature to his liking. What is your view of the governor's actions, and what, if anything, should the legislature do to restore the balance our Constitution intends? Roscoe?
Well, thank you for the Dakotan, and this was not the questions I was provided, so that's interesting. The questions I have was that what is the most important issue needs to be addressed in the next legislative session was the one that I've got. So I'll answer that. I think the number one priority is finding solutions that alleviate the massive inflation that we have. I'm a commercial banker, own small businesses, and I see it every day what happens. Inflation is a tax. It's obviously hurting everybody's pocketbook right now. And that's why in the state's going to benefit from this. We're a commodity-based economy. And so we are going to have a surplus. And then the question is, what are we going to do with that surplus? And I think we can give some of that back in a 50% residential property tax cut. This does fit in our budget surplus. It will not threaten the quality of our schools, our parks. My competitors have proposed to eliminate property taxes, which 75% of the people voted no on in a recent election. That will put the state in charge of everybody's budget. I think that's dangerous. I think it's risky. It puts all of the oil or all your eggs in one basket, which is oil. And to me, giving the people back their money that they paid in property taxes. Now the state doesn't control property taxes. It doesn't assess them. But the state will have a budget surplus, and I think a 50% is a conservative proposal, and I think it's something that can actually pass.
Okay, so with that complication, we're going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to continue on property tax. Okay, so Jeff, let's go to the property tax question that I've got. Roscoe began that to a certain extent. Property tax has been front and center in this campaign. Please give us your perspective on property taxes and the appropriate use of them to fund local priorities.
Are you asking me?
Yep.
Okay, well, I was given that order of questions. I think what the governor's doing is wrong. But as far as property tax, the half deal has been tried before. The only way that you're actually going to get relief to the actual homeowner is to not have property tax on the table, period. It has to be shielded from the legislators for one thing, especially in a climate where you have fake Republicans running the program and a lot of candidates that want to, it's really interesting that the same people, whether it be the governor or Finkenstein and the Darker Future Alliance or other candidates who are depending on them to run illegal ads about these things. It's funny that they turn around after 4 years of wanting to bash the boldness and the conservative movement and the grassroots people, then they want to use the terms like bold and conservative in their ads. And you see that all over the state. I heard one in Fargo today. There's a Republican running for governor in Fargo, and she scored a 10 on the conservative scale. There's nothing conservative about her. So everybody's rushing for that word conservative. So you have to wonder what's really up with that. So that's what I would have to say is if you really want true conservative principles, you really have to run on the Republican platform.
Okay, Lori?
Well, could we kind of have a question?
We're going to continue on property tax question. Property tax has been front and center in this campaign. Please give us your perspective on property taxes and the appropriate use of them to fund local priorities.
I think that the property tax should be looked at to be abolished. I think we should find a way to reasonably spend money in our state. I think we're consistently overspending, and I think if we reel that in, that there is a solution to alter the tax structure and give homeowners actually true ownership if you go through the process of paying for your homes. I think that protects families. I think that protects our elderly and people on limited incomes. I think the property tax really isn't threatening to people who are wealthy. So I think to really safeguard our families, I think looking to abolish it would be the right solution.
Okay, so as it appears that we've gone off our script just a little bit because we've got a different set of questions with one of our candidates, I'm going to ad lib the rest of the questions. Okay, so nobody will have pre-planned questions. I'll again ask you to stay relatively close to the time. The next question, we're going to begin with Jeff. Jeff, the governor has decided to interject himself into multiple races across the state, both in the last legislative election as well as this one. How has that impacted District 3, and what is your perspective on that?
Well, I kind of hinted at it in my last comments. You know, it's really hard to know and follow where the thousands of dollars are going, but I know he was called out on it. It is wrong. It's wrong to mix the executive branch and try to own the legislative branch. That's how you run a business, but that's not how you run the government. The government is supposed to be, let me just sum it up this way. His big phrase was, let's dream together. And my first thought is, you know, as a legislator, as a government official, you don't dream with the taxpayers' money. You do that with your own money. And so that's the heart of the problem. That's the root of the problem. And you can't just buy the legislature like that. It happened between the elections, not just during the campaign season, but even during the legislative sessions. I know for a fact, I know a legislator who said, I can't vote no on this bill because I got money from the governor. That's wrong. It needs to be investigated and it needs to be called out, not because he's a bad guy, but he's got the wrong view of government.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Lori?
Could you just summarize that question real quick again?
The governor has inserted himself into many races across the state this election cycle. Please give us your perspective on that and what it has done in District 3.
Well, honestly, I think it's extremely wrong that he has inserted himself in this capacity. Our Constitution of the separation of powers was pretty clear that this was not something he should have the right to do. And I think it's imperative that people pay attention to what he's done. Because if he succeeds in what he's doing, he is taking your voice and he's buying your voice. And with 14 districts right now that he is got his hands in, if he succeeds at doing this, he will single-handedly buy at least 1/4 of the legislative assembly. And in 2 more years, when 13 more come up and he succeeds at that, he will buy the other 1/4 of the legislative assembly. And in 2 more years, he could have 1/2 of the voice in his image. And I think that's extremely dangerous and it should scare us to action. And frankly, I think there's enough evidence that what he's doing is seemingly wrong, besides the fact that he has chosen to use as his platform a bunch of lies. I think the legislative assembly should consider impeaching him.
Roscoe?
Thank you. I am not, it keeps being insinuated that I'm taking the governor's money or I'm the governor's puppet. I am not. I haven't taken a dime. Go look at the report on the Secretary of State's website. I've had negative stuff run against me. Jeff has had negative stuff run against him. We have no coordination. He has no coordination with the group that's doing it against me. It's the nature of the beast. I don't like it. I can't stand it. Nobody up here likes it. It's free speech. I served with Representative Ruby. I see him out in the audience, and Representative Brabant. There is no governor that's ever bought a legislator that I know. We are a part-time legislator. We're small business owners, farmers, teachers, normal, just good old people. Is there some that, yeah, that are, not your favorite to deal with? But this game is about relationships, and there's not a single person. I served for 8 years, voted on thousands and thousands of bills. There isn't one time where the governor came down and put his finger in my chest and said, "Hey, you better vote this way." It sounds sexy to say, "Well, he's just buying everybody." That's not how it works in the real world. It's a relationship business. You get to know your colleagues. You advocate for what you believe in. They advocate for what they believe in. You try to find the best solution for the state and for your district, and you move forward. There's hard lines. There's no governor that's going to make me do anything. It's what's best for us, our communities, our state. So I think this is overblown. Do I think they're spending too much money? Absolutely. But it's not the candidates that are begging for this. It's outside groups.
All right, thank you. Okay, we're going to switch gears and go to election integrity. So the legislature is in a unique position to really make election law. We have seen in polling based all the way back to 2016 and through the 2020 election that generally across this country right now, you only believe in the results of an election if your guy won. What are the opportunities that we have in the legislature right now to restore Americans, and in particular North Dakotans, faith in their election system? We'll start with Lori.
Well, obviously, I would love to see our elections be secure and trustworthy. As we saw our presidential election hijacked very clearly with lots of evidence, I think there's no greater time than now to see the need to come up with a solution for this. I don't know what past bills there have been, but it sounds like there haven't been very many people interested in this topic in the past legislature, but I think it needs to absolutely be one of our utmost primary important topics and make sure we secure our elections.
Roscoe?
Thank you. North Dakota is not like the rest of the United States. We're the only state in the nation that doesn't have voter registration. We're not hooked up to the internet. There's not electronic voting. I've seen it. I've been there. I used to carry the Secretary of State's budget for 3 sessions. Is there some improvements that could be done? For sure. But we don't have a fraud problem in North Dakota. So let's separate some of the other states that clearly did. We know which ones they are. There is no fraud problem in North Dakota. I'd love for someone to provide the evidence of that. These are our peers that are taking our ballots. We're putting them in the machine ourselves. It's double checked. It's not connected to the internet whatsoever. They're physical ballots. We do it right in North Dakota. We should take what we do in North Dakota and spread it to the rest of the nation because we are doing it right. And I think you guys see that when you go and vote. It's a great process in North Dakota. Now, would it be much easier for people running as candidates if we were registered? For sure it would, because then we would know, well, there's the 1,282 people that I'm just going to market to. But not having voter registration, having to show an ID is absolutely perfect. We do it the right way here. So we have to separate ourselves and take what we do and spread it to Washington, spread it to the rest of the states, because we're doing it right.
Jeff?
Well, I hope you're right, but I think that's a premature conclusion to make. And I think that there are enough anomalies and irregularities in even North Dakota's that we ought to investigate it. But there's the appetite in the legislature is way too low to do that. I've been to the Mike Lindell symposium. It's actually not true that it can't be hacked, that there isn't any connection to the computer. And so as far as the solution and where the hope is, I think that if we really wanted to be a hope for the nation and lead the way, and I think we should be leaders in this, I did introduce two bills that I think, and a lot of people introduced good bills, but all of them went down, except for one that changed a little bit of language and did some things, but there's no appetite for it. Even the Secretary of State testified against all the integrity bills. And one of them would have involved hand counting alongside of machines. Another one would have had serial numbers on the ballots. These were presented by citizens, taxpayers that had these ideas, and I just carried them for them. There's a lot of good ideas. There's not enough time to go into all of them. But I think North Dakota, I don't think we should stick our head in the sand and say, oh, we're great and nothing's wrong. We need to investigate, and at the end of the investigation, if everything's fine, then we can draw that conclusion.
Okay, we're going to go back to Roscoe for the next question, the last question in this round. So COVID-19 response in the state of North Dakota, the governor led that and really set a lot of the tone for things that happened all throughout. We heard from mayor candidates that tone was a big part of how decision making was made in each community. One of the other things that we learned during that period in the last legislative session is that the legislature passed again a record budget, blowing out the top of what the previous budgets had looked like, and only as an afterthought during the November special session brought some tax relief to taxpayers. Can you give us your comments on the overall response of the state when it comes to COVID, what that's meant for the budget and what that should look like going forward?
Sure. I missed one day of work, so I was at work every day. We did have to close our doors for a few days, but generally everybody was at work. I was not at the legislature when this, bills were going through and whatnot. But yeah, I think, did we do it perfect? No. Do I like everything that he did? Absolutely not. I mean, I'm a personal responsibility, freedom, let you make your own decisions person. And that's proven in my voting record. I mean, the sessions I was there, I was tied for number 2, I think, with Representative Ruby the first year, and next time number 3 and number 7 before that. So, I mean, to me, the government's just hands off. Let people decide what they want to do. As far as the budget goes, a lot of the federal money, I mean, it just came pouring down on the states, as Jeff knows, for the response. And honestly, the legislature didn't know what to do with it because it was an obscene amount of money that was coming from the feds. Tax relief was a good place to put it. Infrastructure is a good place to put it. Now with our budget the way it is now, it's because of oil prices. Oil prices are $120 a barrel. Natural gas is $8.50 or whatever it is today. It goes up every day, it seems like. In an ag-based, commodity-based economy, we're going to generate a lot of money. Is it sustainable though? I mean, you'd have to bet that oil is going to be at 120 for the next 10 years. It's volatile. So we got to be careful on spending. And I think my plan for 50% tax cut, it fits within the budget. It's a conservative approach to it. We know the markets are up and down and wild. Look at the stock market today. The legacy fund, I guarantee you, took a massive hit today as far as the investments that are in there. So going forward, it's going to be an interesting time in the legislature at next session because there's going to be a lot of decisions that need to be made.
Jeff?
I would say that please don't vote for any legislator, including myself, that you're not convinced will fight for your individual liberty. One of the things that, it comes down to the role of government, and all of us want lower taxes and stuff like that. But if we don't have our individual liberty, and our individual liberty is under a threat, anybody that was paying attention during the pandemic knows that there are international unelected bureaucrats who want to take away and shift our freedom to have more power. And there's a socialist Marxist movement of which most of the Republicans went along with. Our State Department of Health failed us. They weren't just a little off. They absolutely failed us because I agree with Tom Ross. They did not even listen. And same with our city officials. They did not even listen to the other alternative solutions and the other science. It wasn't that they made mistakes. They willfully put that voice out, and they're still doing it. So I've made a pandemic pledge that I would like to announce that If I'm in Bismarck, I will introduce a bill or a resolution that will consider any international health regulation, which is a real threat even for North Dakota. And we've seen our governor go along with it and follow these unelected bureaucrats in the CDC. And you have to send people that are proactive. The mask mandate, for example, we stopped the governor, and it was the people that did it. And there is a growing movement in North Dakota right now of conservatives, led a lot of times by Christian conservative mama bears. And I'm telling you what, the Republican convention revealed there's over half of them there were there for those reasons. And so my pledge is that any regulation coming internationally will be considered null and void, dead on arrival in North Dakota. We got to protect North Dakota's borders from this, and we can be the most free state in the nation. I think we should lead the way.
Lori?
I say amen to that. I think we need to make it priority to protect our freedoms and our liberties. What happened in the COVID-19 pandemic has cost our families, our businesses, our economy greatly, and I think it's something that we're going to continue to see reflected as we have shortages now and we have inflation. I think it's a very serious matter that we don't allow them to do these type of mandates on us. And as far as our budget, I think we need to make sure we're reining in our spending and allocating our resources and the wealth of our state in very wise ways to accommodate for looking into abolishing the property tax so that we can cut ties with the government having their hands in our home ownership.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to move on to the last part of this section, and so this will be a time for rebuttal. Just in the sense of in the thought of time, we're going to move through with one set of rebuttals. So we'll begin with Jeff. We're at you with the next one. We'll go Jeff, Lori, and then Roscoe. You'll have the last word. So please keep it minute and a half if you can.
Could you? What's the question?
It's a time of rebuttal, really wherever you'd like to take it to make your case.
Well, I guess what I just previously said is really what I believe, but maybe I'll just share. It's not really a rebuttal, but just more of, I think what doesn't get shared, and I think is very important, we need to get back to God. And when I say that, I don't mean we need to favor Christians. I'm saying that we need a biblical worldview, and that's different than saying that the government should take on the role of the church. Frankly, the government's already taken on the role of the church. They shouldn't be involved in the business of abortion. They shouldn't be involved in transgender stuff, all that kind of thing. They shouldn't be involved in the morality. The church has its role, but there's a design by our Creator that our founding fathers recognized, and you read about it in Genesis 1 and Genesis 2. That's where you find, if you're going to use a 9/16 wrench on a 9/16 bolt, it'll work better. But if you want to use a plier or a hammer, you can, but it doesn't work as well. And that's where we have how God designed society to be. And what do you find before we had sin, before we had the breakdown? You find a biblical worldview of how our world was designed. And that's where you find life. That's why life is important. And that's where we should be involved. We should be involved in gender. That's where you find male and female. That's where you find marriage. We should be involved in marriage because that's where you find it in the design of creation, not in the church's role, but in the design of creation. And we all entities need to be cooperating with that because it works better, just like a 9/16 wrench works better on a 9/16 bolt than a hammer. So I know that's 1 minute, but I'll stop there.
All right. Lori?
I would agree with that. I believe we are the most free when we are governed under the authority of God and not under a dictatorship of government. I guess I would just like to say, I hope that you be informed voters as you go out and research all of us very well and decide, who's gonna represent the people the best, not an agenda, but really what keeps us maintaining our constitutional liberties and freedoms, because it should be a voice that is a servant voice and not somebody with an agenda.
Roscoe?
Thank you. I'm just going to hit on the budget a little bit here and then there's a few other things. So if you want to cut spending, but yet eliminate property tax, aren't you really increasing spending? I mean, you need $2.4 billion. The projected budget surplus is roughly $2 billion. It might be higher. It's $120 a barrel. So where's the 400 million coming from? And now, so if the state pays for everything, nothing's free. We know that nothing's free in life. So what is Mr. Janser going to do, or the mayor, when not 100% because they got sales tax, or the park district property tax? So who controls the park district then? Is it the legislature or the park board? They have no control over their budget. So you got to think about these things if you're just going to say eliminate everything. Local control is very important. We want the government as low as the control as low as possible, and that is with people in this room and city council, park boards, and not the state of North Dakota. You do not want Bismarck running the park districts or the cities, trust me. As far as in 2000, we got a big decision coming up here out of the courts. 2013, I was happy to vote it on in protecting North Dakota for when Roe v. Wade does get overturned. Constitutional measure, heartbeat bill. I'm 100% pro-life rated, endorsed by the NRA because of my votes, my record. Not from what I've said, but based on my votes and my record. And to me, it's a relationship game, like I said before. And if you're not a member of your own caucus, how are you going to convince your colleagues to do what you want, what's good for your community? The answer is you're not going to. And that's unfortunate. And is conservative, and I've got a proven record. It's right there online. You can see it as anybody up here and in this room. And that's what I'll do if I'm elected again, is fight the same battles I was doing before with the budgets, and holding the agencies accountable. So ask for your vote. Look forward to doing that, and it's been a fun campaign so far.
Thank you, candidates. Thank you, Mike, for asking those questions. Thank you for rolling with the punches a little bit with those questions. Now, after the break, it's the audience's turn to ask questions, and we will bring all the candidates back up here on the stage. We'll get to the real reason we're here, and that's why it's a town hall. We want to hear from you, the public. We've gathered some questions, and we'll hear from the audience. That's what we'll do next when we continue from Minot's town hall meeting at the Grand Hotel.
Only Pizza Ranch serves buffet your way.
Don't you mean my way, Mr. Voiceover Guy?
Sure, anyone's way, actually. Request your favorite pizza. We'll make it, bake it, and give you the first slice.
I can add peppers to pepperoni, stampede on stuffed crust, maybe Texan taco on thin. No tomatoes on my half. How can I convince Mom to let us eat here every night?
It's buffet your way at Pizza Ranch. Say it with me, kid.
Real reviews, real employees.
Hey, it's Jason, and this is a real customer review. Jason always gets the job done with honesty and integrity. That's me. I've used a number of companies to handle my small fleet in the past, but never had the same level of service, honesty, and caring that Jason provides. Hey, whether it's a car or a fleet, we're always honest.
Whether it's brakes, alignments, or a check engine light, trust your vehicle's performance with the team at Tires Plus.
Hey, what are you guys doing?
We're making our getaway to the Hyundai Getaway Sales Event.
The Hyundai Getaway Sales Event is going on now here at Don Bassett Hyundai. You can get the best deals right now. This isn't even a Hyundai. Let's go!
We could have planned this out better.
Get away with a great deal only at the Hyundai Getaway Sales Event at Don Bassett Hyundai on Minot's North Hill.
There are so many ways to make memories at the Pizza Ranch buffet. Eating a fresh salad just the way you like it. Getting your favorite pizza with a buffet your way request. Celebrating with pepperoni on cheesy stuffed crust. Digging into the country's best chicken, hot and crispy, with mashed potatoes and gravy. Enjoy some cactus bread and ice cream. Hit the fun zone for games and prizes. Make your buffet memories at Pizza Ranch.
Beck News is your leader in local. Beck specials and live information for you. Original programming. Exclusive local sports. Beck is local for you. Uncensored topics and uncensored opinions. Unapologetic politics, where all sides are represented. Full episodes online anytime at beck.news. All in one network. Your leader in local, Beck News.
Welcome back to the Grand Hotel and the Minot Town Hall meeting. We have all of our candidates who you heard from previously this evening back up on the stage. Thank you all for staying here. As we said, this is a town hall. We really want to drill down, and we want to hear from the audience. So throughout the evening, as the candidates were up here, we were gathering questions from the crowd, and I'm going to toss it over to Mike and Derek Trudell, who have been gathering some questions, and they're going to ask some questions of the candidates. Now, this could come for the Minot mayoral candidates, the Minot City Council, or the District 3 Republicans. So go ahead, Derek and Mike. Thank you.
Thank you. And before I ask the question, I'll let you know what group it's directed at. Some of them are general to everybody, and I think everybody can get the opportunity to answer those. And if it's specific, I'll let you know that too. So this question is specific to the District 3 candidates. Would you agree to a proposal to stick as close to single issue bills as possible? Outlaw Congress-style omnibus bills. It would help identify the rats in the room.
A good question. That does happen on the OMB budget, Office Management budget, where a bunch of stuff at the end of session does get added. It's usually the last bill in session. There is no other vehicle at that point. So there is a lot of stuff that does get put in there. But yeah, you always want to stick to the issues. Budgets, you can't really say stick to the issues because there's literally thousands of lines in these budgets. So it's a wide-ranging issues in the budgets. But yeah, I mean, generally you don't want, I mean, nobody wants to vote on a bill that is loaded with stuff because there's always something you don't like in it. But I mean, if you can get, my theory is if you can get 85, 90% of a conservative good agenda, that's a win. Like there's nobody in life that gets 100% of everything. That doesn't mean you're going to give up your principles, but but yeah, and generally you want single issue.
I would say he summed that up pretty well. I think it would be best if they could be single issue so that they weren't packed with a bunch of conflicting agendas.
I guess I would say yes, amen to that. And the only way to get a legislator to stick to a single issue would be to limit them and make it happen by a rule or a law.
Okay, thank you. The next one will go to our mayor candidates and city council. A lot of people have referenced broadening the tax base, but what specifically would you do to broaden that tax base?
I'll start out. Am I on? There we go. There we go. I'll start out. Well, certainly the answer is economic development, bringing more people in, having more people spend money in our community. The more that we can bring in through sales tax helps lighten the burden for our property tax owners.
I'll pick up. You also have to look at the responsible use of those economic tools that we've got. Things like, you know, if anybody was paying attention, TIF. TIF is a tax increment financing tool that can be used to help with economic growth in a community. We have to look at broadening the tax base by bringing people in like we've talked about or like Lisa alluded to, but we also have to use responsible economic tools when the situation fits. That's the key. Every single situation that's posed to the council or the mayor isn't necessarily going to be a likely fit and should not always be passed. They need to be scrutinized. They need to be run through the channels prospectively, and then use those tools.
When I first sat on the council, I was, the mayor assigned me to the zoning ordinance steering committee. And my first meeting on that committee, I sat down and had a discussion with the other members, and my message was clear. We have to do it better than the other cities in this state. We don't have an interstate running through our backyard, okay? And we're not that we're off the beaten path, but we are kind of off the beaten path. So we got to do it better, and we got to make it easier for businesses to do business in Minot. And that started with the zoning ordinance steering committee, making those regulations more streamlined and easier for businesses to set up in the city of Minot. It also takes strong messaging. We've got to send strong messages outside of the city limits that Minot is open for business, that whether it's a TIF or whatever, that if you want to invest in Minot, you can invest in Minot. So I think a solid messaging from the council and from the city and from the county all have to be on the same foot if we want to grow Minot.
On that note, I think the big word on this issue is retention. We have folks coming in for the Air Force. We have young people coming through, growing up with their families. We need to make the investments necessary to retain people that we have here in Minot, and that's really a matter of battling against our climate. I think we're all no strangers to the fact that Minot's pretty Arctic in a lot of ways, and that can be tough to get people to stick around. But if we make the right investments, that we show folks that, hey, you can have a good paying job here where you can save up money and save up for your retirement and go out and enjoy and travel the rest of the world, but come back home to Minot and have that sense of community. And the more of those investments we make in areas that are, looking to develop economically in the next few years, the bigger chance we have to retain those folks here in Minot.
So growing the base, when we talk about not just economic development, but also taking a look at the importance of infill and redevelopment, simply because if we continue to grow on the model of just expansion, we're chasing infrastructure at a much higher cost. So it is important to also take a look at that economic development in a very fiscally responsible manner. We take a look at the downtown. I think I'm pretty well aligned on Paul, so I'm going to steal his line on this one. But look at the investment and the increased valuation in our downtown. That is absolutely, I think, one of the probably best examples of growing the base of what we have. The redevelopment of the Trinity buildings, and then on the other side is just ensuring that we address our workforce. If we don't have the workforce, we're not going to be able to fill the jobs. It's tough to get new businesses into town. So we absolutely are going to have to put I think, an emphasis on that as well.
Yeah, I think all good points to this point in time. Economic development, again, I said it was my wheelhouse. It's something I'm passionate about. We need to make sure we're investing our money wisely. We can't have good money follow bad money. We need to partner with our community leaders. We need to partner with, whether it be the Chamber EDC, Visit Minot. And again, hold these organizations accountable that if you're going to take taxpayer dollars, we need to see a return on that investment. There needs to be transparency. You need to be able to measure how well you are doing with taxpayer dollars when they're granted to you. We need to work, there's been some talk about turning Minot into a tourist destination for our hub, right? We're a hub city for our surrounding communities, for sporting events, all those things. I sit on the Visit Minot board. One of the programs that I helped champion was the Tourism Recovery and Resiliency Fund. We're helping the local coordinators for these organizations, sporting organizations, youth sports. There's a ton of money that can be reaped from going after events like this. A Tourism Recovery and Resiliency Fund has brought over $2.3 million, $2.4 million over the past 2 years, respectively, apiece into our community from outside organizations, from people from Bismarck, from people from Mohall, people from Dickinson, Williston, that are coming and utilizing shopping at our stores, supporting our small businesses, staying in our hotels. That's good money. We need to go after good money rather than us spending our money here and just maintaining, or people going to Bismarck to go to a Costco. We need to strategically invest. When the retail coach is something that we invested in with economic development funds from my ordinance change. The retail coach is actively marketing Minot as a destination for franchises, for Sam's Clubs, for Costco's, whatever it be to make Minot the quality of life go up so that you don't have to drive to Bismarck, so you don't have to shop online, so that you can support small businesses and keep that money here. And again, there's a lot that can be done. But we have to work with our community partners. We can't sit up here and say we're going to work with our community partners and then pull the rug out from under them just because of personal vendetta or because we don't like something they said. We need to actively reach out and be collaborative. We need to work with the county. We need to work with the school board. We need to work with the park board, because we're all pulling from the same pot of money, taxpayer dollars. So again, we have to keep open lines of communication. And if we don't have the answers, we need to ask the questions to get the answers we need.
Okay, I want to ask just one follow-up while we've got the microphone down here with the mayor and with Paul. You guys have both mentioned the investments in downtown, and the facade program is one that I want to hit on for just a quick second. And really the rest of the city candidates in particular, if you'd like to chime in, I'd love to hear it as well. What would you say to a building owner like myself who has a building just outside of downtown, who doesn't qualify, and who maybe has a roof or has a facade that could use that same exact help? What do you say to someone like me?
It's a great question, and I think we've had that question posed a couple of different times. With some of the different tax incentives, some of these are very targeted and specific, and that can be challenging, and understandably that many economic models target the downtown specifically as a drop point for tourism, for outside dollars. Paul talked about chasing after bad dollars with good dollars, and vice versa. But it is a proven model that if the downtown is in good shape, it draws in people, and that creates more economic opportunities down the road for addressing some of those needs outside of our downtown. And that's sometimes difficult for a lot of other folks that say, well, okay, we can't do everything at once. If we address the downtown and we get that in a healthy, vibrant state, that is going to open up more opportunity for other programs down the road if we are successful. And I think that we're starting to see that success in our downtown, but it's one step at a time.
Yeah, I'll second what the mayor said and add to that again, these things take time. Would I love for it to be a citywide program? Absolutely. That's the goal, right? I mean, but we have to have a concerted effort. My wife would probably say that I have too many things going on, and we've all been there, right? We're trying to juggle a bunch of things. We're trying to work on this and work on this project and work on this project. What we need to have is a centralized, focused goal to establish and to help a certain section of Minot. And then when we champion that, we can move to the next step. These things take time. Either we're effective or we're ineffective. And right now we're trying to be as effective and strategic with these dollars as possible. And again, putting these buildings back together are very challenging. They're very expensive. They're very laborsome. There's building codes. There's international existing building code that we adopted as a council to try to help these things, rather than having these properties sit vacant like the Big M building for 20 years, collecting less than $10,000 a year in property tax. We're utilizing these tools or other buildings. We can look to the Askell Group with the High Third building to the building Kitty Corner. What were these buildings doing besides being dilapidated, being overrun with pigeons, health code violations? Now they're back on the tax roll because of these tools that we have put into place to help this centralized part of the community. And again, these tools all come together and they make it effective. They make it effective. Would I love to grow it citywide? Yes, but we have to be realistic. We can, if you guys want to pay more taxes. I don't want to pay more taxes. I don't want you to pay more taxes. So we have to be smart and we have to invest rather than just spend.
Do any of the other city candidates want to add? Miranda would like to. One thing I'd like to add to it, another perspective, again, from the outside is maybe nobody should get that money. Maybe we should just lower our property taxes a little bit and we each can take care of our own fronts. Miranda?
So specifically with the facade improvement program, I understand why the downtown was chosen, but the downtown gets a lot of incentives. And as a business owner myself, and I can see where you're coming from, I think the government needs to get out of the way of business. And if the program is so good and it's so effective and it's going to increase the tax base on the downtown businesses, it's going to have the same effect on a business that might be located outside of that downtown sector. And they should get the same type of treatment as every other business. And not every business downtown is going to utilize that program. So if you're banking on every business downtown using it, that's a different scenario. But if there's a business on North Hill that can benefit from that program and improve their facade and potentially improve that entire neighborhood, that's going to improve the tax base across the board.
Oh, Mark, I'm sorry, Mark. Go ahead.
Thank you. I think that what we're talking about here is a certain kind of blight where properties become aged and they aren't maintained as well as they probably could be. And so you kind of go at attacking that. But I would favor broadening this program to include properties outside of the downtown as quickly as we can.
You know, if you look at downtown, I think part of it's an attitude. You look at the investment that has gone on, private investment downtown. You go downtown on a Thursday night or a Friday night or a Saturday, and man, it's bustling. It's hard to find, it's difficult some nights to find a parking spot. You see groups of people walking, going from place to place, downtown on a Friday night, downtown on a Saturday night. And that's even before one facade program got off the ground. We've approved them, but they haven't started, and we've got a lot of activity going on. So I think part of it is an attitude. And I always said, I said when we had the initial debate on that, was what are we doing for North Hill? What are we doing for South Hill? East Burdick, West Burdick. It just seemed a little unequal, so to speak, that just because of the location, and I'm all about downtown. That's where we did our school shopping at JCPenney's and Woolworths and Ellison. That's where we did all of our shopping when I was growing up. So I love downtown. But I think we have to have, we just can't discriminate because of location.
So just briefly, as a former educator, I would spend a lot of time talking about the difference between fairness and equity. And fairness and equity are not the same thing. Fairness is giving supports to a person or a group that needs it at time, and equity is doing the same thing for everybody all the time. Right now, downtown needed our attention. It was lagging. There were buildings that were in disrepair, and so we did focus on the downtown, which I think was fair. But after this, I think we need to look at a different area and see who needs our support at that time. I think downtown is a success right now, and hopefully in a very short amount of time, we're able to move into a different neighborhood and help.
But our history with the last 5 years, I've been here 6 years, and like Tom mentioned, it's night and day, the different downtown. So we see these investments working, and we've seen expansions of other programs like the Renaissance Zone going outside the areas that it once was. So we need to remain open to that. At the end of the day, though, these sorts of programs have those boundaries, and we just have to work through, see their effects, and then look to expand them.
Just want to make one point of clarification. This is not the facade improvement program is not funded by property tax. It is funded 100% from sales tax. So it is not an increase in property tax when this program is in place. It's not a property tax burden. And when we look at some of the challenges that we'll be facing downtown with the vacating of the Trinity campus downtown, the vacated Big M building, these are programs that are put into place because it does require additional investment from not only investors or developers, but from the community to make these projects and the numbers work. No investor has to come in and spend money and make a bad investment, but we as a community can make it viable and helpful for some of these developers so that they are willing to come in and take some of the blighted properties off of our hands.
Good. Okay. We'll move on to the next one. Actually change gears a little bit. Something we haven't talked about all night. Looking back over the last 10 years, we cannot deny the increase in crime and opioid drug crisis within our city. And I'm going to expand that to the state. What will you do to get a better handle on these issues if elected? And I'd actually like to start with the District 3 candidates. To me, these are statewide issues. What can be done to help stem some of the tide, especially on the opioid crisis?
It is an issue that's not talked about enough. Mental health is an issue that's not talked about enough. We as a state have certainly made strides in investments to try to help in these areas. Are we doing enough? No, we're not. I mean, from a conservative standpoint, you know, it's like, well, we can't spend money. We're not going to spend money. It's not our problem. It's their problem, which is, you know, people, I mean, that's a common theme with some people, but it is our problem. It's ruining our kids' lives. A lot of kids look at the mental health issues, some of the shootings that are going on, not in North Dakota, but nationwide. I mean, mental health is a massive issue. The breakdown of the family is a big issue. And some of these things, you know, government can't solve everything. But I think from a state perspective, there's certainly more resources that could be put into the nonprofits, certainly more resources that could be directed to mental health and to the drug opioid crisis that we're in, and other crises, not just that drug. So yeah, I mean, I think it's going to take more money to do it though. And we're just got to be willing to know that to incarcerate somebody is $80,000 a year. What if we can treat them for 10, 12, 15? It's you got to look at it from that standpoint too. And I think the state can do more.
I think bringing morality and hope back into our educational system would be a great place to start. If we could stop the agenda of redefining family, redefining gender, and redefining our history, I think we could bring and build more hope back in these kids, or people that are seeking alternative measures to hide behind drugs. I think that'd probably be the best place to start.
Well, I think this makes a good difference between a Democrat and a Republican because as a Republican, the government shouldn't be involved. We've already, by the government, be involved in so many social programs and even hospitals, they've taken it away from where it was with the individual, with families, and the church. And I think that's where it belongs. I think the government will just mess it up worse if they get more involved. I think that the best thing to do is that. And then you also brought up crime. I think the best way to deal with crime is actually define what a crime is and then really support our law enforcement. We don't do what the Democrats want to do by defunding the law enforcement. We need to back up and support them when they are actually, if we just simply let them enforce the law, that would pretty much take care of our drug problem, or excuse me, our crime problem. And I think families, dads in particular, parents need to be back in the game with their children. So we need to support the family. But you do that by supporting the church and the family, not by taking over their job.
Okay, I think this is a great one where there's some distinctions. So let's keep going through the city candidates if you like.
I'd like to take this one next if I can. We have an amazing nonprofit sector in our community that can help with a lot of these things. And when you're talking about specifically things like addiction, so we're having a town hall meeting and people are asking us questions. So I'm going to ask a question of the audience. Who in this room has a family member who's dealt with addiction? Raise your hand. There's a lot of us. We need to start, so you said the government shouldn't be involved in this, and I agree to some extent. But what we need to be involved in is having open communications and realizing that every person in this room is likely going to be affected by addiction at some point, and having these normalized conversations and helping to find solutions for these problems. I'll be completely vulnerable. I have two members of my family, my mother and my brother, who both deal with addiction. They were worried about me running for this position that they might have to leave town. That's not okay. They're both 3 years sober. I'm super proud of them. But we need to start leaning on some of these community partners and realizing that I'm not an expert on it. Nobody up here is an expert on it. I don't think anybody's an addiction counselor. The people who are going through addiction right now, those are the people that are experts. They're the ones that are going to come out of it on the other side, and they're the ones that are going to be able to lead other people out. normalizing the conversation, leaning on the nonprofits, and just talking about it more.
I'm going to piggyback on top of that with that conversation about the nonprofits. That in itself, that's where the opportunity lies, in my view. We can build that bridge. We can build a collaboration with nonprofits, with the private sector, with public sector as well. It's the reality of it, in my opinion, it's going to take funding. Where's that going to come from? You know, if we want to put together a good, strong effort and tackle it, go head on to help, we're going to need some funding. And I know we've got the network here locally that we can attack it. It's just where is it going to come from? You know, city budgets are going to be tight, county budgets are going to be tight, state budgets, federal budgets. We're going to be battling for dollars, and we just got to ask ourselves, ask our legislators, ask our senators, how much of a priority is it? And if it's a priority, then let's get after it.
This issue is near and dear to me. Like I mentioned earlier, I have 2 foster children at home. They're both teenagers, and one of them is going to treatment tomorrow. And so what I will say is that the commentary from the 2 District 3 folks on the end is dangerous. To say that there should be no public funding for this sort of thing, that state stepping in to fund these things is important. It is important because there is no profit incentive for treatment for addiction. And these people are people, and they deserve the investment and the chance to turn their lives around. Because what a lot of people don't understand is that the severity of addiction, especially with opioids, not only do you quit the high, quote unquote, your body actively rejects it and tries to shut down itself when you quit. That's how severe this issue is. So it's important and it's dangerous to talk about how the state needs to step out of it, because it's important that we invest as a public with programs like Medicaid to combat this, because we've seen success stories through rehab. They're human beings. We can, and community itself is also so important. Churches are important. Schools are important. Helping people find purpose in their lives is important, because that's the issue that addiction stems from. It's not this one choice that just leads to it. It's despair. It's not feeling that they have a place in the economy or in this world. Community will address it, and public funds will address it to give us the resources we need to combat it. So it's so important that we need to continue to try to make those investments.
So recently, sitting at a roundtable from local, regional, and state law enforcement officials talking about the infiltration of all of the different opioids from not only Detroit, but not only Chicago, but Washington and Arizona. North Dakota is a prime area for importation of these different narcotics because it's so profitable. That's where our law enforcement priorities absolutely need to have the collaboration from the state and national levels to shut down the suppliers, to shut down the inflow of these deadly drugs into our communities. On the side of treatment, the nonprofits, very well said, absolutely must play a role, but the local side of the funding wouldn't be nearly enough. We have a $26.5 million local budget from property taxes, and we could sink every penny of that into treatment and still not be able to solve the entire problem. So it is going to be a holistic effort, the national, the state, and the local level, all local levels, if we want to get our hands around it. And mental health 100% plays a critical role in that, not just in the treatment, but the rehabilitation at all levels.
I'm going to agree with Sean, and I'm going to agree with Zach. It's no different than if you get cancer. It's no different than if you break a bone, you're sick, you need help, you need to go to the hospital. Addiction is a sickness. You need treatment, you need help. And we need to normalize that conversation. We need to empower the nonprofits in our community to help with that, to administer those resources. We need better resources. We need more resources. Those things are going to cost money, and to think that it can be handled at the local level in its entirety is foolish. And again, it's going to come from the top down in order to make these things feasible. We need to empower our law enforcement to be able to stop these drugs when they're coming into our community. and to identify those things and again, get them off the streets before they get into the hands of our youth and infiltrate my kids' lives or your lives any further than they may have already. But again, this is a sickness and it deserves resources to be allocated to it because it's at some point or another, we're going to know someone that's affected by this.
I concur that this has to be a multi-level approach. A number of years ago, when a methadone clinic was proposed for Minot, there was a whole bunch of resistance. And one of our citizens got up at a city council meeting and said, "Hey, my daughter has this problem. I had to go to Kalispell, Montana to find treatment for her." When Miranda asked the question a few minutes ago, a whole bunch of hands went up out in the audience. We're facing this and we need to continue to face it and deal with it. And it's a multi-level approach because everybody's got a role to play. The nonprofits, the faith-based organizations, the state, the city, and federal government.
Well, I'll be the last to chime in on this. I personally know 9 people who have lost their life to addiction. A lot of that comes from being a former educator, but I do have a family member who also lost his life to addiction. That is just unacceptable. It's absolutely unacceptable. And it really is going to take all of us, everyone in this room, to realize that it is an issue and to be able to address it in a thoughtful and caring manner, to be able to, just get around these people and give them the assistance and the help that they need. And yes, it'll cost money. Everything costs money, but there's more than money. There's involvement, there's time, there's support. And unless we're willing to do that, this problem is going to continue and we're going to continue to lose lives. And I'm not comfortable with that.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone. So we're going to take the time to do about 2 more questions. The first one is going to be for our city candidates. So again, feel free to chime in as you feel appropriate. This is kind of a combined one from 2 people, and it's all about beautifying the city. So we're going to need a lot of development on North Hill with the new school going in up there. A lot of change is going to be coming to that end of town. And so I'd really like to hear from everybody, not just on that, but what can we do? What are the quick ideas we can come up with for beautifying our city, making it a great place to live and work?
Are you speaking strictly from a attractiveness? Beautification? Okay. Okay. I think that's important. I think making our city a good place to live, work, and play is important. One of the things that the city's working on is a Broadway corridor study to redo Broadway. And one thing that'll happen from that was your experience driving into town will be enhanced. So when you drive into Minot, pretty much any side of Minot that you drive into, it's somewhat of an industrial area, a lot of concrete. Some would say a concrete jungle, right? I mean, to put, whether it be medians, greenery, having the ordinances in place that require businesses when they develop in certain areas of Minot to incorporate landscaping and things like that, to make an attractive place to live. We all do that with our houses. We all take care of our homes, mow our grass, do our landscaping, make sure the house is painted, sided, roofed, windows. It should be no different with our community. When we drive into the community, you want people to say this is a nice place. You want it to have, and how we do that as well is incorporating beautification throughout the projects that we're doing, whether it be redoing Broadway. Well, let's make sure that we make it attractive. When we do the flood protection and the green space and the greenway, we need to make sure that there's trails and paths and trees incorporated into all that. Rather than coming back after the fact and spending even more money to do that after the project's been completed is foolish. It's been some of the missteps of our community in the past, and I think we just have to keep that mindfulness when we do these projects moving forward.
So concerning Northwest Minot, the good news is that in the not too distant future, there is going to be some really nice development up there. And I would love to go into a lot more detail on that. But some of the efforts are already showing to be fruitful with as far as development in that area of town. One of the popular, unpopular aspects that came out of our citizen satisfaction survey was ordinances are not being enforced. And many of those have to deal with how individuals take care of their own property. You know, if there's trash blowing around, if there's vacant cars and grass that's 3 feet tall, is that the local city government's job to tell people how to take care of their property? Well, it does if it affects everyone else around them. And that is something that the city council is going to actually have that discussion if we are going to be proactively going after and enforcing our own ordinances. There are rules that you do have to follow if you live in town. You can't have a junkyard that absolutely impedes or creates a health and environmental hazard to all of your neighbors. So that is one of the aspects. And I think, and I'll just be very quick here, but empowering all of our nonprofits and other folks around town to take care of our own property, to clean up, to go around and collect the garbage and help understand that the community that we live in is our own responsibility. If you see trash, pick it up. We saw that even with a ton of volunteers that came out on a really lousy day to pick up plastic bags around the landfill that had blown out of there. So it is empowering our own people as well.
So I think that there's a little bit of a difference between city and community. There are certain services, there are certain things that the city does. We provide clean water, we provide public works services. I don't think that it's necessarily on our shoulders to beautify our city. We can set an example. We can certainly adhere to zoning ordinances, but I think it is on the community to help take care of this issue as well. We also do have a forestry department through the Parks Department that does a nice job in planting boulevard trees and things like that. So working with other organizations in our community and just, for the best, expecting the best, not hoping for the best, expecting the best, I think will garner some good results.
I think beautification is a great tool that we could have in our toolbox to help Minot grow. I think we need to be creative in it, and that we should look across the entire city and look at what can we do to make Minot unique and beautiful. I think if you look at getting the community involved and saying, hey, maybe we could decorate all our fire hydrants and poles and utility boxes. Now, obviously, there might be regulations above the city that prevent some of those, but exploring exactly what options we have to invite members of the community. I think we've seen examples of it in downtown Minot where local artists have come in and made areas beautiful. And I think so us as a city council, it's determining where can we get out of the way and encourage folks to make our community beautiful, because rather than paying somebody to do it, we give artists in our community an opportunity to make our community beautiful. So I think it's something we should look at.
I think and foremost, we need to take care of what we have. And many times, some of the maintenance gets short term, short time, short money, because there's always other needs and we're always going on to something else. I think we have to switch to being proactive about enforcing some of the zoning ordinances. I drove home tonight in Southwest Minot and went by multiple houses where the grass is 8 or 10 inches tall and the dandelions look like they're a crop. We don't have people driving around finding those and pushing those citizens to get their lawns taken care of. But that's the kind of thing when neighbors complain, it's too late because all those dandelions went to seed by now.
Looking at the beautification, we got projects. I think it's a perfect opportunity for the city to collaborate with the Park District on some of our entrances to produce something really beautiful as an entrance. I mean, to build on what we already have out there at our entrances. I think it's a wonderful opportunity. I also think the wayfinding project that the city council has taken on, and the small things like that. We're even working at with the facade program. All of those programs are helping beautify Minot, but it's also the zoning ordinance steering committee. Their work is putting it out there to make those requirements for new businesses to beautify the fronts of their businesses and to beautify their properties, not just to have a business. So, I think there's all of that, But I also think there's that attitude, there's that empowerment, getting the people together to feel that community again and to build, to strengthen the property within.
So when you talk about beautification, we were talking earlier about sprawl. There's a large section in the northwest part of town that is already annexed into the city, but it basically just sits undeveloped. Cities don't develop things like streets and gutters and curb and lighting. That's usually done by a developer. So what I think would be beautiful would be, and needed for this community, would be additional housing on that northwest section of town. Now, there's a large portion of land that's owned currently by the Minot Public Schools. Maybe a portion of that is turned into development, and maybe there's some additional incentives for a developer to come in to turn that into livable space, because truly we do have a lack of housing in this community right now, and we have an additional need for housing. That would be my idea of beautiful.
Nick, we're gonna do one more question. We've got one left that's gonna grab a couple people here to talk about it. But I just want to say thank you to everybody. Derek's gonna bring us that last one, and then we'll go to you to head on out.
This last question is for the District 3 candidates. There have been different proposals to either cut or eliminate property taxes. How would you propose to replace those funds?
I think there's been some brilliant people that have already thought this through and researched it. Bob Hale being one of them, rest his soul, he did die, but he wrote a really good book about it. I think Rick Becker's another brilliant mind on this subject. And there's a few other people as well. So I'm not an expert on this, but I'm still learning. But to kind of pick it up where I left off, as far as elimination needs to be off the table, you know, the first thing is defining local control. Some define local control, and everybody wants that term, right? But some define local control as giving it from a big government down to a smaller government. That doesn't get to the people. Local control, in my mind, in anything, is when actually the individual or the homeowner actually has control. And how do you refill? First of all, the dollar, once you reach a certain threshold, there's an economic principle called the Laffer curve, and we're way past that threshold now. That is that when you lower taxes, you will, the dollar revolves about 7 times in a year. It's spent about 7 times. And so that refills the pot naturally just by the economy, by people making choices of where they want to spend the money instead of the government. It refills it about half. And the rest of the half, the first question shouldn't be how are we going to refill it, but how are we going to shrink the government? Because right now our government's bloated. We are we had two record growth governments sessions in these past. And that was with a Republican dominated legislature. That should not happen. We're over twice as big as South Dakota and roughly the same, just a little bit less population. So there's those things, and I could go on, but I think we have to really take a serious look at this. And then finally, I'll just say that some of the research that these guys have done, the economic boom, if you want the economy to boom in North Dakota, the best way to do it is to eliminate property tax. And it's not a matter of lack of plan, it's a lack of will, and it's a lot easier to do. And the local control is not going to be hurt at all.
I agree with what he's saying there. My biggest passion in this was to get us home ownership, that once you make it through the process of paying for your home, you don't continue to rent from the government so that they can seize your home if you're on a limited income at some point, or if your house is continuing to appreciate and your taxes are continuing to go up and you can't afford it. I don't want to see families lose this security. And so I think there is a way to transfer the taxes so that it's off of the home ownership and into a different structure. I don't have all the answers right now, but I certainly think there are a lot of great minds that are collaborating these ideas, and it would take a bunch of us to continue to research how to make this happen. But it was never to abolish funding other programs. It was to remove the government from having its ties in home ownership and figuring out a different way to restructure getting the money for these taxes.
Yeah, it still boils down to money, and being able to actually pass something. So if you're to eliminate property taxes in a biennium, it costs 2.4 to 2.5 billion dollars. Now, if you injected that money back into the economy, into people's pockets, of course you'd generate more tax revenue. You're not going to generate 2.5 billion dollars on it. It's just simple math. That's why I proposed a 50% one, because I think we can afford it. It will be sustainable when we know we're a commodity-based economy. Now, do we want to diversify our economy? Absolutely. Are we there yet? No. Do we have legacy fund earnings and other funding mechanisms? Sure, we do. Those are constitutional funds. 70% of all oil revenue goes into a constitutional fund of some sort. Water Resources Trust Fund, Common Schools Trust Fund, Foundation Aid, and the legacy fund. So even the massive amount of money that's generated from oil taxes, 70% of that is basically off limits. So to me, if someone controls the purse strings, I'll use a bank example here. Maybe this will work maybe for you. So if you have a troubled credit, troubled borrower, who's in control then? It's the bank. It's the same thing that goes from a state perspective. If the state has all the money and they're just going to give it all, spend it all locally, who has control, ultimate control? It's not the local people. It's just not. And we don't want that. I want to cut taxes more than 50% if we can. I think the 50% tax cut plan can be paired with an income tax cut too. We can hit this at a multiple levels. But just to say eliminate it, we'll figure it out. Figuring out $2.5 billion. And do you think local government's going to get any cheaper? Do you think the park district's going to get any cheaper? So this will go from 2.5 to 3 billion to 3.25 billion. And the only way that unless you just put property tax caps on, well, then that just eliminates your city council essentially. Well, we don't want to do that. We want local people making decisions. You do not want a full-time legislature. You do not want Bismarck making all of your decisions. You just don't. It would be like the federal government's doing to the state. They're trying to force us to abide by their edict. We don't want that at the state level. Why would we want that at the local level? So to me, 50% is affordable. It's doable. And it can definitely pass the legislature. Abolishing will not. It's a non-starter, dead. Will it, could you have that discussion in the future? For sure. When these funds get bigger and kick off more interest. They're not there yet.
Candidates, thank you. Thank you for your openness and thank you for your time. We really appreciate it. Thank you for your willingness to serve the public as well. That concludes the Minot Town Hall meeting. We want to thank you for tuning in. Thanks to Beck Television for broadcasting this tonight. Also, a big thanks to Minot's newest media source, the Dakotan. Check them out online and on Facebook as they continue to bring you great local stories that matter. Also, one more time for sponsors who made this evening possible as well: Pizza Ranch, Don Bissett Hyundai, and Tires Plus. Thanks everyone for watching tonight. Thanks to the audience who participated and brought some great questions to Mike and Derek. And now we hope you have a better understanding of who you're voting for tomorrow. Voting is tomorrow. I'm Nick Dreyer along with Derek Trudell and Mike Blessum. Have a blessed evening.